Of course, for this week. So, we can't get through talking another week without talking more about D23 because, man, what an impact it had on us. It was such a great trip. We had so much exciting things. We were exhausted. We were fulfilled. It was amazing. Thank you to all the presenters. Thank you to all the exhibitions. Thank you to all the cast members and especially the volunteers that are out there that took care of us. It was just a great, great week. And, we were trying to debate on how we would go through this show because normally when we go and do a trip somewhere, we do a recap show where we kind of break it through the entire trip and let you know where it went. But we didn't want this show to be an epic 4-hour episode, or we didn't want to split it up into a couple because we already did our bonus episodes. Please, if you want to hear more about what we experienced on a day-by-day basis, go back and listen to those. We recapped kind of what we experienced every single day as we moved along in a shorter form. They're about 20 to 25 minutes each. And you can check all that out and see our delirium and our exhaustion. So much fun. But this time we thought we'd do it in a different way. We're not going to recap everything that what Disney announced at D23. Yeah. We know you can find that. It's all over social media. It's on the Disney Parks blog. It's everywhere. So we're not going to go through every single thing. Instead, we've had some time to process things. So we thought we'd talk about, yes, we'll bring into some of those announcements, but we're more talking about the moments, the experiences, the things that kind of struck us while we were out there, what we're still thinking about from D23. And we'll also talk about maybe a little bit about where we thought this may show that where Disney is kind of going next. So after sitting this and digesting it and ready to go through it, we're going to talk a lot about what we felt, our feelings on D23 and express it and where Disney is headed next. Michelle.
Yeah, it's just kind of our impressions of, from what we saw and experienced. What do we think is kind of like the direction of where the company is going because of all these announcements? And one of the things I think that really struck with me is that they seem to be able or focusing on looking maybe in their past in order to move forward. And what I mean about that is, yes, there's some shiny new things that they announced, but there was a lot that they announced that was kind of refreshing, reimagining some of the historical things that have been going on, whether you're talking parks and attractions or films and things like that. So that's kind of where I was thinking that the message I got from them is like, we know the fan base loves the nostalgia, and how can we make that even better, or as Walt would say, plussing that. So, the first thing obviously that you can say as an example of this is the Yeti finally getting the attention it needs to get back to moving. And I loved how they actually made fun of themselves when they made that announcement.
They made fun of themselves many, many times throughout this panel. I'm going to say this right here at this moment. We rewatched the Horizons, the Experiences panel, the Experiences showcase once we got home because we wanted to check it out and see what it looked like because we were there and we experienced it on site. We wanted to see what it looked like. And I think you got some of it out of it. And you definitely got all the announcements and everything else, but I don't think you got the feeling from it watching it from home. I will say that about it, but that was one of the biggest moments when the Yeti came out. And yes, they did make fun of themselves numerous times right from the opening number of that showcase throughout it.
Right. The other thing that kind of follows along with this is how they're reprising the Disneyland Space Mountain to De la Terre à la Lune, and that
Disneyland Paris.
In Disneyland Paris, yeah, and that's from the Earth to the Moon. It makes total sense. That's how they first had that attraction. It was inspired by Jules Verne's book of the same title. He was a French novelist. I mean, it all fits into that culture, into what is a look back of what did tomorrow look like back in like the 1800s, for example. And I think that's a really great way, to kind of showcase Tomorrowland, because that's one of the biggest problems, right? The technology grows faster than what they can produce attractions and things like that. So why not have a different perspective? But again, loving that they're taking something that was, an original in that park, and just bringing that back, making some updates to make it more modern or fresh, but even bringing back the original soundtrack too. So love that
Yeah,
idea.
and that's going to be it's how I remember, because that when we went to Disneyland Paris, that's what we experienced in Tomorrowland. I know they've had Hyperspace Mountain there for a while, which I love Star Wars and I love Hyperspace Mountain, but it didn't really fit with everything else you're trying to do there, because that was part of the just how it looked there when you went to Tomorrowland in Disneyland Paris, was that Jules Verne, kind of that old nostalgic period in science fiction. And so it makes sense for them to return to something of that style.
Right. The other thing is that they brought up was Spaceship Earth, and that it's been updated since its opening anyways, but they really saw the need that it's been over 20 years. I think that they said that they've really made any changes to that. And again, I love that they're keeping with the nostalgia, that they're going to go through humanity over time, just changing the focus maybe from just being communication, which is kind of like the common thread of that attraction, to something that's a little broader based in that human connectivity. And I think that is really a key message that I think we all need to be focusing on these days, is our connection, our commonalities, and things like that.
And I think you may remember that they had announced before, back in 2019, that they were updating Spaceship Earth at that point. And there was a bit concerned about how they were going, what they talked about, it was based on storytelling. And there was a lot of concern of them trying to put too much IP into that attraction. And I'm not saying they're not going to do it when they do redo Spaceship Earth this way, but it sounds like they want to keep it more classic Spaceship Earth, still time traveling, still talking about these periods in time, yet what connects us, how communication makes this happen. And I think I appreciate that more than what they were talking about doing in 2019. Obviously that got paused with COVID and the shutdown and everything else, and they needed to rethink what they were doing there. I like this approach, at least from the general terms that we received from this panel.
Right. One of the messages that was reiterated was the fact that when they are making modifications to some of these existing attractions, is to understand the fan base wants the nostalgia that they have loved through that, and that the theming and the messaging is the same. And that's one thing they specifically said about Spaceship Earth, that the essence of what Epcot is and what that attraction was to begin with is going to still be maintained despite making some modifications. So
yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, the other big announcement that also, again, looking back to move forward, is Dreamfinder coming back and, having the changes to the Journey to Imagination. I mean, that was really amazing to hear. And it's funny because if you're not somebody who's gone to Epcot, and Epcot in the past, you really wouldn't know Dreamfinder, but there's a lot of the fan base that knows Dreamfinder, and it's one of those things you want to share it with your kids. It's just something really special, and so excited to see that they're recognizing something that may not be as broadly known is still a key to bring back.
Well, for one thing, they realized, and they've shown this over the years, that they realized that people love Figment. They love Figment, despite them not really necessarily loving that new version or the current version of that attraction, but they love the character itself. It always is a big merchandise draw. It's a big photo draw. People love it. And yes, there's been a lot of, hey, we need to have an attraction that is worthy of this amazing character that is so Epcot, that is so Walt Disney World. And what do we think about? We think about the classic version of that with the Dreamfinder. And so there's been many calls, and I'll just tease it right now. One of the many things that I think is a notice that we're hearing from Disney, and they said it multiple times during this panel and other times throughout the weekend. We're listening to you. We may, and it may not be that everything we ask for, they give us, but they're listening, and they do want to try when they can to find things that people love or have loved over time and make them great again or make them great. And so I love that they're doing that, bringing the Dreamfinder back. One of the biggest announcements of the weekend for sure. It's been speculated on for a long time, and then it finally came to fruition, or at least it was announced there at that panel.
Right. And it's interesting you're saying that message, because I did hear that message too, that the fans are at the base or at the core, the center of their decision making. And I know that, I've been in work in organizations where they would have, representation of, a client or a customer when there were going to be decisions being made, so that they could get that immediate feedback before they spent a lot of time going through a project. And I don't know how Disney's doing it. They have easy access to fan base. So they are fans, most of them, that I would think all of them that are working there. But I think that they have really emphasized that process. And so I think that is great.
I'm going to say, I feel it helps right now that the CEO of the company he's out there, and he's been for years out there with the fans, talking with the fans, meeting with the fans. Think of what you want about Josh tomorrow, but I've never seen him not be out there willing to shake somebody's hands, talk to somebody, hear what they have to say about the Disney parks. And I feel like that is part of when the head of the company is doing things like that, that is going to trickle down to the other areas within this company. And I feel like we're getting an essence of that in this right here. And the other thing I'm going to talk about probably throughout this is Dana Walden's effect on what we're seeing too. And we'll discuss that in a little bit.
Yeah. Going back to this concept of, bringing things back to move forward, is their commitment to reimagine Tomorrowland at Disneyland. That was something that we had talked about even before the panel. It was like, and we were chatting on texting with some family members too about what are you really hoping, and Tomorrowland reimagining is one of those things that we all said is needed. And it's amazing and great that they are committing to this.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have seen it be for both coasts, because Walt Disney World needs it too, but Disneyland needs it more.
Right.
It really desperately needs it. They've had for 20 years, the people mover track that just sits there and nothing is happening on it. It's just there in the way, of many views of the walk into Tomorrowland. It's there being unused. Now, I don't know if they're bringing back the people mover. Gosh, I hope they are. But if they're at least doing something, even if they're just getting rid of that track, it's a step in the right direction. But everything, showing that area some love, is desperately needed. And again, it was another one of those huge moments for a crowd that is in Anaheim, just a few steps from Disneyland. They were very, very thrilled to hear that, as were we, of course.
Yeah. Exactly. And one other one that I'll mention, I mean, there could be more that we could talk about, but the World of Color at Disney California Adventure Park that they're returning to, that, as well as some other nighttime experiences in Disneyland Park, but updating that World of Color, but updating it to be more like the original. And I that's kind of what I heard in a lot of these announcements is we're going to take those originals and we're going to, keep what you loved about them, but maybe freshen them up so that you are interested in returning to see them again.
Yeah. Also, Magic Happens, the parade, the daytime parade coming back to Disneyland, which was a fan favorite before it went away. And, it was for the 70th anniversary, mostly why it went away. And then before that, of course, it was because of the shutdown. But that coming back was a big thrill for a lot of people. And I know we've been wanting to see that parade for so long. And we were planning when we were in California, we were thinking, okay, we're going to go see it in any week now. And then the shutdown happened and we never got to see it because we moved before it came back. But hopefully now that it's coming back again, we'll get to see it in the future. But so many great things.
Yeah.
So many great things.
So. Where do we go next?
So there was just, there were so many announcements. I mean, we were talking about how we're not going to talk about announcements, but there were amazing announcements that were out there. Now, what I will say about a lot of these announcements is there was not a ton. We already just went over some of the things that were kind of new that we didn't know anything about, that were surprises to us. The Yeti, Spaceship Earth being reimagined, Dreamfinder, Figment being changed, Tomorrowland being adapted, all those things. But there was more kind of talk about things we knew were coming, but now we're getting more info on them. We're finding out what's happening with them. Villains Land. The name of Villains Land being Villains Land, which some people cracked on, but I think it's perfect. It totally makes sense. Yeah. Why not? It's Tomorrowland. It's Frontierland. It's Fantasyland. Why not Villains Land? It totally makes sense to me.
Yes.
In Magic Kingdom. But finding out more about the attractions, the style of it, the story behind it, and there's lots more to come. But I found that fascinating as well. The Coco attraction coming to Disneyland, speaking of Disneyland, and the fact that it's a boat ride, which we kind of thought it was going to be, but enhance that, the story behind it, the announcement that Coco 2 is coming and that this is going to kind of play into both worlds there. So that's phenomenal. Tropical Americas. Talking about Harrison Ford, actually the face of Indiana Jones in this, using his actual face to create this character. First time that has ever happened for an Indiana Jones character on any of their attractions throughout is phenomenal. And this is one of the steps where I'm going to talk about Dana Walden, because I feel you saw a lot of celebrities making their appearances. If you saw anything, any pictures or anything from the entertainment showcase, that was one that wasn't streamed. But man, it was boom, announcement, celebrity, announcement, celebrity, announcement, celebrity. They were all over that thing. There were plenty of celebrities involved in the experiences showcase as well. They all showed up for the legends, to support all those Disney legends, all sorts of celebrities showing up. Dana Walden is completely dialed in with Hollywood and has been for decades now. And I do feel like that, her being a part of the entertainment part, where you have Josh D'Amaro doing the experiences portion, they are going to make a phenomenal team. And I think it's already showing just here at D23 weekend, including things like Harrison Ford agreeing to put his face in this attraction.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was, I don't want to say missing piece, but I think, like you said, the having that link together, that they are really complementing what they're bringing to this organization. It's noticeable and it feels right.
It feels different. It feels different. We loved being at the D23 Expo. We've been there twice, 2017, 2019. This felt a little different to me. They all have been great, every single one of them. That's why we keep coming back. This one had a little bit of a different feel to it to me. It was more like they were chatting with us rather than talking at us. I kind of felt. That was just my personal opinion of it, but I loved it. The things, like I said, you didn't see, well, Tropical Americas, before I get away from Tropical Americas, obviously we knew a little bit about La Casita and the Encanto attraction, finding out a little bit more about that. We already had heard that the cast members were returning to record their voices for that, getting that, finding out a little bit more about that attraction. Again, looks great. Also, when we were in the Imagineering Pavilion, talked to one of the Imagineers there and asked him about that attraction. I'm like, looking at this looks like this might be a trackless attraction. They would not confirm or deny it, but I will say their answer to me was like, oh yeah, that was their way of saying it was a trackless attraction without saying it was a trackless attraction. So I think that came across pretty clearly. Moving on to, I want to talk about the carousel that's going to be in Tropical Americas as well. I don't know if you may have been able to see some of the artwork online, but it was hard to see when you were watching the actual showcase when it was streamed. But the animals that they're going to have there that are all Disney characters just made to be a part of this carousel. It's so whimsical and fun. I'm excited. I like carousels, but I'm really getting excited for that's in the carousel. I'm really excited to ride and find another animal to ride that is going to be a classic Disney animal. I'm thrilled for it.
Yeah, it's just exciting to see like Bambi or Hey,
Pua.
Right.
Timon.
Yes.
Cusco.
Right. It was like you said, what a creative way of bringing these animals, but things that are part of all their storytelling.
Yeah. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the way they're doing it. I think it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be a talking point and just a point you're going to want to see. I love what they're doing in the tropical Americas
Yeah.
so much. Now, again, you saw the experiences showcase Horizons. You may have watched the Legends panel, which was incredible.
Mhm.
But you probably didn't see the movies and TV showcase, the actual entertainment showcase, because that was not streamed. But let me tell you, that was phenomenal as well. As I already mentioned, so many celebrities showed up. They all showed up to support their movies or other people's movies that were involved in. And there's an incredible lineup of things coming to Disney, including the animated films. Really was struck by a lot of what they have coming, both kind of, there's always talk about originals versus sequels and so forth. There's plenty of sequels, but there's plenty of original content coming and some interesting things that I'm very excited about, for sure. So lots of great stuff that came out of that. Again, I don't feel. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I was just going to say one of the other things that the more I thought of it afterwards, and to now, even to this day, is the cars, the new area at Magic Kingdom that's going to be themed about cars. And I know it's, people have wondered it's not Cars Land like over at Disney California Adventure, and we got to talk to Imagineer there that's working on that project, and what he explained is this land will have its own story as you go through it. Its story is coming to life to you. And I thought that was a really great way to address it, where you can feel immersed in a Cars environment, but it's not necessarily identical to what you see on the screen and everything. And I guess you can kind of say that's the same thing as Galaxy's Edge, in that area. This looked like it had a lot of great elements to that, that you would expect in Cars area. I love the walking paths. Obviously, the attractions look great. But it just had a nice feel to it and looked way bigger than I was expecting that area, and how it blended, because their mock-up included the existing areas that are around like Frontierland and everything like that. So you could see how it really was a nice blend together within all that space.
Yeah, if you watched Horizons, if you watched the experiences panel, then you got to see a little bit of it. I believe it's called River Ridge Run or River Run. I'm trying to remember what the order is of that, but I believe that's what they're titling this area, and the main attraction on it. There's 2 attractions on there, by the way, and they both look fun and exciting. I'm very excited for them. And yeah, some of that got captured by some of the artwork you saw there. But I don't know if it got captured as completely as it was when we got to go on the show floor and go into that Imagineering showcase and see the model there. And I was completely blown away by the model. If this land comes anywhere close to looking like that model, it's going to be magical. And absolutely, I'm not going to say, look, Rivers of America, we all love Rivers of America. I'm not going to say it's not going to hurt a little bit to not have Rivers of America in Magic Kingdom. But this is, if you're going to do this, it looks like a fairly good replacement for it, with lots of spaces to go explore, maybe get a little peace, but also from exciting attractions, some enjoyable things there to see, and for people of all ages. And you mentioned we talked with the Imagineer. I asked him pointedly, I'm like, was it how did it feel for you knowing that this is a beloved area, and what was the feeling in there, and how much did you take it to heart having to redo this area, knowing that so many people love that Rivers of America? And he said, we thought about it every single day, that we need to make sure that this place is great, that this is amazing, and that it still has that heart and kind of that vibe, but despite it being, yes, more of a themed attraction, but still giving you kind of those spaces. And it comes across, at least in the models and some of the artwork we've seen.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, just talking to him, you felt confident that, and he admitted it's not a replacement. It's not taking the Rivers of America and making another Rivers of America, but understanding that because people love that, what you need to offer them is something that's going to be very satisfactory, very joyful, very fun and exciting. And so I felt confident that they really did, keep that in mind.
I felt much more confident. I was kind of feeling fairly good about it going into it after seeing some of the artwork we've seen. Like, okay, looks like they might be putting some things into the equation, making sure there's water, making sure that there's some peaceful spaces there. But actually seeing this model up close and personal and seeing how it lays out, I think it's going to be brilliant. I really do. I really do. I'm really very excited for this space. Maybe outside of tropical Americas is probably the thing I'm most excited for. This might be right there with it.
Right. I mean, one of the things he said that I didn't hear in announcements and you couldn't tell looking at the model, but that there is going to be an audio animatronic, what do you call it? National parks, Ranger that's going to be there to kind of help greet you and give you some information. And I saw some of the artwork. It's taking a character from back in the 30s or 40s that was there and making them into kind of like a car. I just love it. I loved how they brought some of their core of their animation to something very new.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm very excited for all those announcements that you saw, but we wanted to expand on that a little bit. As far as things we experienced on the floors or at the panels that just kind of like everybody, like as a unit, just was really, really thrilled about. There were several things. We've already mentioned several of them. The announcement that they're bringing back the Yeti. So many people were excited about that. Tomorrowland, of course. The Dreamfighter. The interesting thing about when they announced the Dreamfighter, because they kind of faked it out, like the Tomorrowland announcement was going to be the last announcement. So we were sitting there still. We were in our seats still waiting but people were leaving.
Yeah.
There may be some people that didn't even see it, and they may be like, what? It may be like that late inning comeback in a baseball game when you were leaving to go get out of there. I think there were some people that did that. They did not get to see that announcement, but that was incredible as well. Other things, one thing I know that, gosh, at the Legends panel, that performance leading into Lin-Manuel Miranda's induction as a Disney legend was incredible. So many celebrities showed up and performed so much of his music in an interesting way to celebrate Lin. That brought the house down, including Lin himself. Eric Goldberg was surprising to me. Not that I didn't think he was deserved. Actually, I think he was well deserved. How big a standing ovation and an announcement when he got inducted as a Disney legend that was. Of course, Anne Hathaway was a huge one as well, and so many others. But those were, I'm curious what you thought were some of the ones that brought the house down. Michelle.
Yeah, I think some of the things that brought the house down are, the room exploded. Well, first of all, you mentioned Dreamfinder. And one of the things I want to say about that, I thought that was a real mic drop moment, how they did that.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
Agreed.
The Coco, when they were talking about Coco and, like Coco 2 and the, bringing the cast back and things like that. And then them showing like these clips from the original movie. And then suddenly Heartless appear within the scene.
Even more than that, that was they were teasing it that was going to be a video game. And I thought, okay, they've been tied in so much with Fortnite.
Right.
At that time, I'm like, okay, they're telling us, oh, Coco's coming to Fortnite because that's been a regular thing. They've been, matter of fact, some of the experiences panel in the past, they've been showcasing how Disney is a part of Fortnite regularly. I'm like, okay, they're going to say Coco's going to Fortnite. And then, like you said, they're doing in Poco Loco.
Right.
And suddenly the Heartless appear and the room, absolutely exploded for all the people that love Kingdom Hearts, that video game. We're so excited.
Yeah.
Including us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love that game. We've gone through all of the versions that they've had. So looking forward to a new version coming up. But yeah, as soon as I saw the Heartless, I was like, it kind of like woke me up. You're like, what? This is so exciting.
We did get a full trailer of Kingdom Hearts 4, which is coming, which we're thrilled about because again, we played all the Kingdom Hearts games. We love them and we're excited for this one as well.
Yeah. So I think those I realize were such big like I said, the room exploded when those things came out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was incredible. I don't know, was there any announcement that the more you thought about it, you're like, wow, that was an amazing announcement. Maybe it didn't strike me at the time, but thinking more about it, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, I think the one thing that comes to mind is Jon Favreau talking about releasing an Oswald series. That I just it kind of gave me chills. I can't say I've been a fan of Oswald. Now I might become, but just the fact that they are once again paying homage to one of the first character that Walt really put out there, and the kind of the story behind it, of how he lost it, how the company brought it back. But this is just going to be more something fun and joyous about having Oswald come back to the screen, and the fact that they are using hand-drawn animation to create this just again brings back that core of what the company really started on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of skipped my brain for a little while there, so I kind of forgot about it a little bit, but I knew it was happening because they've announced it in the past, and I'd even seen some photos of Jon Favreau out at Disneyland filming for that, and they're saying, oh yeah, they're filming Oswald. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But actually getting to see the trailer, or at least a piece of this while we're out there, and it was really emotional, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there were some moments in what Oswald is experiencing, was pretty impactful, especially those of you who love Walt, which hey, you're listening here, you probably do love Walt.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and it brought me not that 100 things didn't bring me to tears over the weekend, but that was one of them that definitely did. There was a scene that just nearly wrecked me. It was really, really great.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've experienced, but not everybody has. So I'm not sure how they're going to present it in the series, in the film, to be able to recognize where Oswald is. That's so impactful. I'm hoping that they do. I would expect that they would. But yes, it was almost like I kind of gasped when I saw Oswald there, and like, wow, perfect.
Yeah, it was great. That was. I agree with you. That was fantastic. Including in Jon Favreau, and it's out there now. You can watch it on Disney Plus and Hulu right now. He also brought in this that he was basically produced this Nat Geo documentary where they followed a lion cub for 4 years growing up. Just getting a clips behind that and hearing the story behind how that happened and everything was pretty incredible as well. And I'm very excited. We haven't watched it yet, but we know it's there, and we're looking forward to
maybe today.
Yeah, possibly today, but definitely within the next week or so, getting that started and enjoying that.
100%, because what he said there was they just started filming and following the same, like Tom mentioned, the same lion cub. And as time evolved and they were looking at the footage, they realized there's a parallel story that is very Disney here. And so, it was just kind of a happenstance, but it's great that happened. So I think, talk about storytelling. This is a great example of that, using real nature.
Yeah. Since we're talking about Favreau, I'll just go ahead and go into Star Wars 2. I was really, really excited to see a little bit from Ahsoka 2, which is coming up here next year, season 2 of Ahsoka, and getting Hayden Christensen on the stage again, and knowing that we're going to get much more of him as Anakin Skywalker going forward. It was very exciting to me. And I've talked about on the show numerous times and how I'm so glad, because, the prequel trilogy, he struggled in that. I think it's a lot more because of the fact that the writing and the directing and the editing really let him down. And he struggled with mental health challenges because of that, and didn't want to be part of Star Wars because there was so much backlash for that for so long. But now in recent times, he's making more appearances. He's showing up at all these things. And again, he's going to be back as part of Ahsoka, and as he should be, because Anakin and Ahsoka are so deeply tied together, and I couldn't be more thrilled that he's back making these appearances. That always strikes me. It's happened more frequently, and I'm glad that it continues forward.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I saw here, and I've seen it as they've featured him as Anakin, is showing the layers of Anakin. I think when you look at the prequels, it's very one-dimensional kind of a person or character, and you don't, you got more when you watch Clone Wars, and now with the Ahsoka series and the film clip that they showed us, you saw another layer of him. It's like a really it's kind of like, it looked to me a little bit like mentoring, but also maybe antagonizing, kind of that, he's in that blended
That's
area.
the kind of relationship they had in the Clone Wars. And it's really important for those who didn't watch the Clone Wars to see they're bringing this to Anakin, and they're bringing that depth to the character. And yeah, I mean, I didn't think I would love Anakin, and I didn't necessarily love him through the prequel movies.
Right.
But man, after watching Clone Wars, I understand why Obi-Wan mentions to Luke how great a hero he actually was before the downfall. There was always this little thing back there with him, but getting to see it, and now you're getting to see it in live action with the character, with the actor who played the character in the prequels. That unfortunately the prequels let him down a bit. I'm so glad he's getting that opportunity.
It's exciting.
Yes, it thrills me. It thrills me to no end every single time. So much more. Do you have any? I think we've kind of discussed them. Do you have any other, like, your favorite announcement, maybe your top 3 or whatever, were your favorite announcements that you heard all weekend long?
Well, I think again, I think mine are more because of the nostalgia, the things, like hearing Tomorrowland Reimagined, which was one of the things that I felt going into that panel I wanted to hear. The Kingdom Hearts 4 coming out. I'm just such a fan of Kingdom Hearts game, and I love the Coco theming. So the marrying of those two together, I can't wait for that. I just really can't wait for that. And then obviously Dreamfinder coming back. Again, mine were a lot of more the nostalgic things. Not that I didn't love a lot of the others, but my favorite ones, I think, were that.
Yeah. I agree with all those. Those are all some of my favorites. I would definitely go down the list if I was just to try and. It'd be tough to choose my favorites out of all this list. One we haven't mentioned yet was the announcement that there's going to be a season 2 of the Imagineering story as well, which we're really thrilled about, because now it's looking at a period from the shutdown through the Chapek era, through that whole upheaval of Chapek and Iger coming back, and now tomorrow, and what's going forward, because they're doing so much. They're putting so much into these parks now, that the fact that we're going to be able to get a lot of that going forward as to how they've come to this point where we're getting all these amazing things we're talking about here, or that have been announced both at D23 2024 and of course enhanced on in this one in D23 2026. So I was very excited to hear that we are going to get to see that in 2028.
Right. And maybe I misinterpreted the beginning, because if you've seen, they did, have this streamed as well, where it says it starts as when the world ended, and I took that as when Walt died.
Oh, I see. I took it as when everything stopped because of the shutdown, because of COVID.
It could be. Yeah. Interesting.
But, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So.
But anyways. Yeah, I'm so happy, because I love all Leslie Iwerks stuff, but I love the Imagineering story so much, and I can't wait to see it more modernized and find out, because then they're going to be talking about everything that goes into these attractions that are going to be debuting over the next couple of years.
Right, exactly. Very fun. Very exciting. Yeah. So anything else about announcements and things like that?
No, I mean, Monstropolis, we got to see a little bit more in that. Got to see a bit of the show, hear the song that they're going to be having in the show there. And the fact that Monstropolis is going to be opening next year, which is earlier than I think we expected. The coaster, the door vault coaster
Right.
won't be open when it first opens, it sounds like. But you'll still be able to experience a lot of that land, and then that will be coming later. Kind of think about maybe Star Wars Galaxy's Edge before
Right.
Rise of the Resistance opened.
True.
The area was open. We did have some other things you could do, but then we were waiting to come back and visit when the Prime attraction opened up.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, I think another thing that we planned or wanted to talk about today are things that we experience at D23 that you really wouldn't see being covered necessarily in social media or streaming, or announcements and things like that, because there are a lot of things that are great about going to D23 that I thought would be good to cover.
Yeah, a lot of the showroom floor stuff.
Yeah.
You only get to experience if you actually go visit.
Right. So, for example, they had this thing where Hulu had mock-ups of different sets of some of their shows, and you could go around and get photos there. They would take them with your phone. Some of them they actually took. They had a photo pass person there. And if you're on YouTube looking at this, you see us with the set of High Potential, which is a show we kind of like as well. I didn't notice it before. The on the chair is the jacket, her fun
That's
jacket.
why I wanted to sit there. I'm like, I think it's kind of funny that I'm there with the furry jacket.
Right. So that's awesome. And so they had a ton of them. I want to say they had like about 15 of them or so.
They had several, and you could go. You had a card. You could go around. If you got 4 photos, they would
take
different
ones. Mm-hmm.
They would take your photo, and then they would stamp it, and then you went back to the booth, and you would pick up a pin. But it was a way of showcasing all their different shows, which it's such a diverse stack of shows that they're there for you on Hulu, including, like I said, you can see here, and if you're watching on YouTube, that High Potential, which is very much an ABC show, or The Simpsons, which is a Fox show.
Right.
It's great.
And also film the Devil Wears Prada 2 was highlighted there. We
Percy
did.
Jackson was there, which is Disney Plus, but it's also, you can find it on Hulu as well.
Right. Oh, what was that football one with the
Chad
Powers?
Chad Powers. Thank you. Yes.
They had a lot of different stuff. And what was great is you got a mystery pin for completing this, and you could do it 3 times. I think in essence it was like equivalent to once a day going and getting. But I thought that was nice that they did that. And it was just a fun activity that seeing these sets and everything and getting some photos.
It was clever. I will say that it was clever, and it was fun, and it was a way to do something different and get a lot of photos. We did get a lot of photos. We posted some of those on our social media as well. Somebody pointed out, I think it was Eric, pointed out that because I had taken pictures of us, and we're like, we're there with Frozen 3, and we're there with Hex, and then there was this picture of High Potential, and he was like, I feel like that's the one that doesn't quite match. But it's a great photo, so I added it.
Exactly. They had the new Macy's Parade balloon on display out there, actually by the Disneyland Hotel.
That was
or
downtown
Disney, but kind of in that atmosphere that people could go. You didn't have to be attending D23 to see that, but it was wonderful seeing that balloon that is of the classic Fantasia Mickey in there. They had shopping experiences galore. Very different. Challenging, but I understand some of the things. So the one they had every morning, you could try to get into a virtual queue. What I liked about their virtual queue is if your number came up and you were at a panel, you didn't have to worry to leave. You could return at any time.
Yeah, we took advantage of that one time. We weren't sure if they would let us in.
Right.
But it still showed up as it being there. It was like, show up by 10:45. I'm like, at 10:45, we were in the middle of this panel.
Yeah.
There's no way we could be there at that point. But we went up and you asked, and sure enough, they're like, just go and get in the line.
Yeah, exactly. They did have some standby lines as well. But some of these shops are things that you might not normally get to go to, and so having that experience, they would only let so many people in at a time, and but we got I got this adorable hat here for Imagineering.
We got our tiki bird. We got Jose.
I know, so exciting.
That was the one thing we had to get.
Yes.
That was the one. We need to get that, and we got it day one.
Yeah,
perfect.
I was able to pick up a beautiful. This was a splurge, a long fly that is of the Burbank Studios theme, which is again not one that you would see in stores and things like that. it was a hard decision. They had a lot of great ones, but I think one of the things we didn't get to go to were any of the pins.
I heard the pins got wiped out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like some of the pins that were really people really wanted, they were gone very, very
Right.
quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I know they had some limits and things like that, but things were very popular and things like that. But there was just, there was an excitement in the air as you would expect on the showroom floor. So much to see, the ability to actually go in and see some really big names at venues that were really small, quaint, but right there on the showroom, And so we, for example, I know we got to see Jared Bush there. I mean,
Chief Creative Officer for Disney Animation.
Right. And he's right there, I mean, it's funny because people are walking by and just not even realizing, I think, that it was going on, but he's giving presentations, to see from Doug Chang, all the elements and inspirations that he and his team took to create Mando and Grogu film. It was phenomenal to hear some of the things that inspired them. So much great detail and storytelling there. And it was free. You just walked by and you could just stand there, and listen to this great presentation.
Yeah, it wasn't something. These are both not things you need to necessarily queue up for. They were in the schedule, so you know when things were coming, but they would happen on different stages, and you could just walk up. And Doug Chang was a fairly well attended, but as far as Jared Bush, we just plopped ourselves right there on the floor and could watch him, and there was plenty of good space available, which was a shame because he's amazing. And he even laid out, this is where we could hear that basically they have the next 10 years of Disney animated films laid out. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be some changes or some pivots during them, but he's like, we got 10 years set, and it's all full of both, IP that that you love, and also some new interesting things that they have coming down the pipeline as well.
Right. So even if you couldn't get to, some of the major panels and things like that, you had a lot of great opportunities to see these things happening. A lot of fun things. They had bands coming through every once in a while. I mean, again, the energy was brilliant, and it was just a lot of fun things to do right there on the showroom floor. So
yeah, I'll tell you what, I thought this showroom floor was much better laid out than in the showroom floors we've been in the past. It's been a while since we've been in a D23. We missed the last two for a variety of reasons, but we were at 2019, we were at 2017, and the show floor was great. But I felt like it was a little clunky the way it was laid out. I felt like this flowed a little bit better, and it was easier to understand where things were as we were progressing through it.
Yeah, and I think most of the speakers were always in rooms, like on a different floor and things like that. So this kind of gave you that opportunity, let's say that you did have your virtual queue show up for shopping, that you could do that and then also take in this. Some of the other great experiences that kind of surprised me a little bit on the showroom floor or at D23 was they had a display by the town of Marceline, and they had volunteers, citizens from, and if you heard our road trip one, the town of Marceline, where Walt lived and loved and everything, is still just as quaint and small as it was when Walt lived there. I mean, it's almost the exact same number of population. But these people, you could tell they have such pride in their community, and they were willing to display that. They showed a lot of things, the connection with Walt, things that Walt was part of, opening like parks and schools named after him, and what he did to help support that town. Really amazing people there. They're again not only wanting just to showcase their town, but also to intrigue people to come visit them, and what they had to offer. I know that we spoke to several of them.
Yeah, we were there for a long time. They were very happy to talk about their town, talk what makes their town special. Even beyond Walt, of course, most people go and visit there who at least are Disney fans. Because it's where Walt grew up. It's it's basically Main Street, USA, right there,
right,
in a town in the middle of America. but there was so much more to it, and they're willing to talk about it and explain how great this town is and why they love living there.
Yeah, I bought a couple of their things.
You did.
There.
You did.
Another,
And we mentioned we'll be coming back by, so we'll look you up when we come back there.
And sharing some restaurants to check out.
That's
and stuff. This is great. Some of the smaller panels that may not have gotten as highlighted, we got to experience the ink and painters panel there. And I think one of the things that really attracted to us to maybe check this out, at least for myself, was knowing that now Disney legend Eric Goldberg was going to be part of that panel. So it was really amazing to see, we've gone into the ink and paint department, and that was fun, and we saw a display there, a demonstration there, but watching it during this live presentation, to me I got more out of it. They shared a little bit more, like maybe some of the interesting names that the paints had, how they created the paint exactly to make it match when they had to make other batches. Hearing from one of the inker, that he's been doing this for over 35 years, and that was like a big wow. I mean, you got to love doing that. And
especially as tedious as it seems like what he has to do is.
Yeah, he's tracing.
He couldn't even talk at some points to us because he had to be so focused on what he did. And you can't drink coffee or anything because your hand might shake or whatever. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, and how they really recognized what they were doing was actually taking what an artist did, and they weren't going to make any variations because they honored what the artist's production was, and so I thought that was really kind of cool, that it wasn't like, okay, as long as this is kind of looking like everything, then it passes. No, they were like, what the artist did was gold, and they weren't going to make any modifications or that, and they recognized that as important. The other experience, the other experience that we had was waiting standby for panels, because what they did was they did have a random process of assigning some reservations based on, I guess, the number of days you were attending and things like that. You could put your preferences in ahead of time, and then a random thing told you. So we did have some reservations, but other times we didn't. So we did, and one of the times that we did a standby was for one of the presentations in the large room, the premiere stage, and that was to be able to see Alan Menken.
Disney legend Alan Menken, the guy who has written the soundtrack of our lives as Disney fans.
Yes, exactly. And it was really interesting to me that they had developed a process for standby that you couldn't have like necessarily one person holding a space for 10, 20, 30 people, or even two people. It really was. And the example I'll give is, so we thought it might work, but it did, we thought, okay, you could drop me off after Legends and I would go get into the queue, and then you could just join me into that queue. And what they explained immediately was, no, you're going to be in the line, that part of the queue when you arrive. And if we haven't gone into the room yet, then you could join me. But if I didn't make it into the standby room,
I wasn't going to be able to join you just because you were in there.
Right. And that was kind of a scary situation, because we were watching it. It kind of got down to the wire where you were actually escorted into the standby room finally with your group, the people that you were
just made
had
it a
arrived
little bit before you went into the room. Yeah,
right.
So I was it was very lucky in the timing wise, and I was booking it when you told me that.
Yeah,
because we came back from the Legends panel and we knew that this Alan Menken panel was going to be very, very popular, and it was one of the panels that we really wanted to see. We were a little bit sad we did not get a reservation for it, because I think it was the one, like if we were to put a one single panel at the top of our list that would we want a reservation for, that was the one.
Right.
But we didn't get it. So we're trying to figure it out. I'm like, okay, because we were driving to the Honda Center and back, like, well, and we were staying at the Disneyland Hotel. Not necessarily super close, not far away, but not close. So I'm like, okay, I'll drop you off. You go get in the queue. I'll go drop the car off. I'll book it back, and then I'll join you there in the queue. and it was touch and go, but we made it.
Yeah. It was like kind of like towards the very end, just before they started to bring the standby people into the actual presentation room, that the group that where you had arrived at for standby was brought into the same room. So it was phew. But I thought that was actually a very fair way to have it, so that you're not, again, having one person go in and holding a space for multiple people, and then like, okay, wait a minute, the next person who was there in standby might not get in because you've just brought in a bunch more people.
You did have the ability, if you needed to leave to go use the restroom, or if there was something you needed to run to really quickly, they would give you paddles.
Yeah.
Paddles for the panel, paddles for the panel, paddles for the paddle, that you could take with you. And then you go in there and you show them at the beginning, and they collect it, and then you go back in there. But you had to be within reasonable distance that you could make it in easily.
Right. So I thought their standby process was a fair way to address, all the crowds there. Yeah. Anything else that you can think of, the highlights about being there that, again, wouldn't be coming out through streaming things or necessarily a lot of social media?
I just felt the feeling on the floor. Like there's things like we walked down the floor and there was Bob Gurr in his wheelchair cruising by, just right by us. We tried to get up to him and talk with him, but he was zipping all over the floor. I mean, Bob Gurr is incredible. He was all over the place. As a matter of fact, by the way, Bob Gurr, if you probably didn't catch this at the experiences panel, when I Will Survive came on, when I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name right now. Gloria Gaynor. Thank you very much. I wanted to say Donna Summer. I'm like, no, it's not Donna Summer. Gloria Gaynor came out there, and was like, I was looking because we had a clear line of sight of Bob Gurr, and he's there, and he was just bopping along with I Will Survive. And I'm like, yeah, Bob, you will survive. That's right. Definitely loved it so much. Also walking down the floor and just walking along, I'm like, oh, hey, it's John Stamos. And he waved to me. He's like, hey, it's like, John Stamos just walked by us out there. Just things like that happen on the floor. And we've had that multiple times when we've gone to D23. Things you can't experience unless you're actually there. Pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's just, again, the vibe, the feeling, the excitement. Seeing people in cosplay,
amazing,
it's always
cosplay.
Fun.
So good. I mean, some just bounding, some okay, like, okay, that's not bad. Some that are just incredible.
Yeah.
Like, you put all into it. And it's amazing, and good job. There was one guy who was going around and he had like a sketch pad that he would hang from him, and he would just stop some of the cosplayers and he would sketch them, which was amazing to see, and what a great experience for them, as cosplayers. Pretty cool. That Alan Menken panel, amazing. We've seen it before, or something similar. It's a little different than when we saw it. I think it was 2017 when we saw it the first time, but it's his stories along with the song. He's not the greatest singer. He's definitely a composer, not a singer. But it doesn't matter because it's all the songs you love, and he wrote them, and he's got so much feeling behind them. And again, his stories are amazing. It was a 2-hour show with an intermission, and it was brilliant. And it was the best way to kind of, as I think you mentioned on our bonus episodes, it was the kiss goodnight to D23. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, because it was the last panel that was offered and everything. Yeah, and I mean, not only did he tell stories kind of how or what was going on when he came up with that, but a couple other things really struck with me is love of family. His family. I mean, even his granddaughter was there. She didn't last the whole show.
Very little granddaughter.
Yeah, very little. She looked like she was about 2. But you could just see how excited he was that she was there, but how he talked about his family and everything. And still, after all these decades, his love, respect, and how much he missed Howard Ashman just keeps coming through. It's not
Mhm.
like, okay, here's somebody I worked with and they passed away. This is like, no, this is like my brother, is gone. And to this day, I miss him.
Yeah, he talks about all the great lyricists that he worked with. There's
Hmm.
so many.
Hmm.
The list goes on and on of all the different movies he's been a part of and shows and everything else. All these lyricists that have worked with him, him composing the music, them writing a lot of the words. But it always goes back to Howard
Hmm.
and what Howard meant to him and how much Howard, in fact, impacted his life, but also his career as well. It's
Right.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And that came across in the Beauty and the Beast panel too, which we were able to see.
exactly.
That you can stream, and you should see that part when he gets a bit emotional
Right.
during that. If you've not watched that panel, it is on Disney Plus. You can check it out. And it's a
Right.
great panel too.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. So where are we now? Okay. So we've kind of recapped a lot of what we saw, what we experienced, what we felt through it. But what is it leading towards in Disney's future? How did it leave us feeling? What do we think is coming up? And I think that we've already expressed it many, many times. We've talked about how we like where leadership is going now. We like where Josh Tomorrow is leading this company, along with Dana Walden, and what they're doing with this company. The fact that they are listening to us is what it seems like. At least that's the message. Whether it's true, whether it's not, doesn't mean they're going to do everything we want just because we say we want it on social media. But they're listening. They're paying attention, and the things that they know that we love, maybe they'll go back and revisit, including, as you already mentioned, going back and focusing on some of the things that are nostalgic for us and then bringing them to the future, Michelle.
yeah, I totally agree with you. I really like all, like you said, all the things that they're tapping into the elements of what people know and love. I do think they bring a good balance of bringing some new things to the table. It'll be interesting to see, especially with, theater goers, how things will turn out with audiences embracing or maybe not, things like Hexed and Gato, some of the newer things that they're coming out with. I feel like there's that nice balance.
By the way, I want to mention there was a movie that's coming out. I think it's Pixar, Ghost Market. We got to see a little piece of that. I like where that movie is going. I'm intrigued by that
Right.
movie. We won't get too much into it, but that's something that barely got mentioned. I was very
That's
excited
true.
after watching this.
Yeah,
Piece of film
that is
we saw.
true.
Yeah.
That is
I'm
true.
sorry. Didn't mean
No,
to cut you
no,
off. Go
no,
ahead.
not at all, not at all. I think kind of in that same theme. I think the company has had a great period of time where there was a lot of growth. Bringing in Pixar, bringing in Marvel, Star Wars, and things like that, and it feels right at this time, at least to me, to be now saying, okay, how do we not neglect what was there and make sure it's still relevant and making people happy.
Right. While taking some of this great IP that we have and using them in effective ways in different areas to plus the parks, to enhance the
Right.
parks, to enhance everybody's experience out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So
We didn't even mention the Disney Believe, by the way, and some of the great things that are going to
Mhm.
be aboard that ship. We're going to learn more about that coming up forward. I think
Right.
that's probably why we didn't mention mine, but more about it. But Moana in the atrium, Buzz and Woody on the bow, and then on the aft, and Tinkerbell on the bow.
Right,
Is,
exactly.
pretty great announcements.
Yes, exactly. So
Did you have any more questions? Like what came out of D23? But I really wish they had talked more about this.
well, I think one of the things that I noticed maybe was kind of missing. It wasn't that it wasn't there at all, and it's the Avatar attraction plan for Disneyland. Now they had an amazing display on the showroom, but there really wasn't any mention of it in any of the
They
big
mentioned it really briefly that they say that it's exciting that it's coming,
right.
but they didn't show us any more artwork when we were there or to explain what the attraction is going to be like.
Right. So I don't know if this is a project that it's been greenlit, but maybe it's more back burner right now, not blue sky, but maybe because they have, like I said, on the display floor, they had what the cars are going to look like. And, a lot of the art, concept art, which was phenomenal. I know we follow on social media Scott Gustin. He actually said he had kind of missed it. He had not really taken notice of it.
Mhm.
And, we did. I did. I went through that area and, was just amazed by it. But yeah, just seeing that was kind of not really mentioned sort of surprised me a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if they decided that there's a couple things they need to push forward first and get those done, and then start approaching that area and getting that done, or maybe there's they're trying to figure out some issues with the how the attraction runs or whatever, or what they're going to do with that space. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't give us more on that, but they have not shelved it. They've mentioned it.
Right.
It was there in the Imagineering Pavilion. It doesn't mean that just because it wasn't in the showcase that it's going away.
Right.
Just maybe it may be pushed back a year or so. I don't know.
Right.
But my one thing was the Muppets. I thought, sure, we were going to get more on the Muppets.
Right.
And, I mean, they were shown plenty of love out there for sure. But they didn't, we didn't get that announcement of the Muppet Show or more Muppet attractions or anything else that I was really, really, really expecting that we would get. But I still believe that's coming. I was just surprised it didn't happen during this.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. 2020.
Is there anything else you want to go through on where you think Disney's future is headed based on D23?
Right. Well, I think there, as I said, there was a balance of new things, but not necessarily a lot of new things brought out. I don't know if the board is the one trying to say, hey, let's see how things are going.
I just think that they dumped so much on us in 2024.
Right.
That there isn't, how much more can you announce at this point? We already know that there's other things coming. We didn't talk about the Lion King attraction coming to Disneyland Paris as well, which is also looking incredible.
Yeah.
There was so much that was dumped on us at that point. It's like, we got to get this done before we start really approaching even more than that.
Right.
We'll give you some few other things that we want to kind of enhance. But that was kind of my feeling on it is, you can't expect another group of announcements like 2024 was every 2 years. They'll just never play catch up on it. But we did get to find out more about all those things that they did announce in 2024.
Right. And they did, expand on some of the things. I mean, I know that they're, obviously they talked about the new ships and the cruise, expanding the cruise line. I thought having the more about the fan interactions that you can experience Disney outside of parks and movies, like with Lorcana, with Magic Gatherings and things like that. So it does seem, again, like it's fan-based decisions are happening right now. Like, what can we do to be able to bring more fans together, more fans to experience Disney in ways of outside of necessarily the traditional parks and films.
Right. Agreed. That was my big takeaway from it is that, they're listening to us. They're looking back, but also bringing it to the future. And we got a great team. I really believe we have a great team at the top of Disney right now and looking to move into the next several years.
Right.
So I'm very, very excited for it. And I was very excited for D23. Michelle, will we, if we can, be going back to D23 in 2028?
Yes, I think we will.
100% we will. We were out there and we were discussing because while we were there, we had landed the opportunity to buy Olympics tickets for Los Angeles in 2028. And we were about to do it. And we're like, but also D23 is probably happening most likely in Southern California in D2028. Can we do both? Do we want to do both? If we can only do one, what were we going to do? Hands down, especially by the end of the weekend. We're like, nope, it's D23. There's no question. D23, we're going to be back, and we're very, very excited for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that is beyond the announcements, our D23 takeaways. And man, what a fun weekend. Thank you, D23.